Hello and welcome back to Afterglow episode 44. I'm going to be doing a newer game today, and I did some thinking about it before I actually decided to cover it. I'm going to be covering the original Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers from 2010. I know that does sound kind of new, but as of this recording, it's actually the year 2024, which means this game's 14 years old. And there's actually only 13 years between the releases of the NES and the N64, and whenever the N64 came out, I considered the NES a retro system, so I will really feel that this would, at this point, qualify as a retro game. But a little bit of a bummer, this game's actually not available anymore, so unless you already got it back then, there's no way of getting it. Which is something I really, really hate about the digital era. If a company decides to pull a game, you don't have a way of buying it anymore. If you got it, cool, but if you didn't, that's such a bummer. And it is a fun game. But I'm going to get more into all of that after our music cut. Hello and welcome back. So if you haven't really played Magic the Gathering, it is a collectible card game where you play as like a wizard along with your opponent, and you power your spells and creatures and whatnot using lands. They generate mana, which allows you to cast spells and to summon creatures to attack and defend. You have 20 life, your opponent has 20 life, your goal is to get him to 0 using those creatures and spells. That is a very, 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 compact explanation of a very deep game, but that's pretty well what it is. I started playing it back in high school, and I had a blast with it. It was like a really unique game. I love the fact that it was infinitely expandable, and it's still popular to this day, to the point where there are tens of thousands of possible cards. And some of these cards are stupid expensive, but That's neither here nor there. But this game was the first game I remember to where you could actually play straight Magic in a digital form. There was a DOS game or a Windows game that came out in the late 90s. It was like a role-playing game where the battles were done through the cards. But this is the first game I remember playing to where it was just simply the card game. And I absolutely loved it. Now, it was very, very, very much dumbed down for people who are new into Magic. It gave you a deck just to start out with. Every time you won a game, it would unlock another card that you could use in that deck. Interesting thing, though, it just threw the card in your deck. And if you're like a Magic guy, you know you want to keep your deck at 60 cards. That way you've got stability. You know the chances of what's coming up. And the more you cram in there, the lower the chances of you being able to draw what you need at the time you need it if you just have all kinds of crap thrown in there. So you do have to manually go in and edit your deck, and the game don't really tell you this. It just throws those cards in your deck. So it is a good tool for a beginner into Magic, but I'll tell you what, there's some stuff like the whole just throwing those cards in your deck that really messes with you. That being said, it's an awesome game for the fact that, you know, if you don't have any buddies who are playing Magic around with you at the time and you had the itch to play, you could load up Duels of the Planeswalkers and start up a game. And yeah, you're limited with the cards of that era, like that specific window that this game came out. That's all the cards that you're going to be able to play with and build with, but still, it did scratch that itch back then. However, you also had online multiplayer, and this was awesome. You could go online and play Magic with someone online. At this point, I believe that Magic Online did exist for computers. However, I was never a huge fan of Magic Online just because the UI looked pretty bad. It's very ancient. It still looks like a late 90s app here in 2024. And the cards are pretty pricey. Like, there's no way of getting free cards. And you have to invest some money in order to be competitive, which is pretty unfortunate. So this game kind of dodged that bullet, and it was a great, intro into being able to play Magic, which I thought was awesome. So on top of that, this game has a campaign mode, which is just more or less you going up against a list of opponents and their decks and trying to beat them with your deck that you've worked on. But it does introduce you to a little bit of the story of the game, the idea of Planeswalkers. The Planeswalkers are the wizards I was talking about earlier in a way. And although I don't believe this game had the Planeswalker cards, it had the characters that you played against. And I thought that was a pretty cool touch. And it gave you a form of progression in a way, because every time you beat someone in the campaign again, you unlocked a card for the deck you were using at the time. And this is one of those games that actually kept going for a bit. It actually had 3 different expansions, which is pretty cool. And each expansion added some more decks you could play, a little bit more campaign to it. Gives you challenge achievements. It added in new game modes like Two-Headed Giant, which is kind of fun. So it was really, really cool. I believe the last one came out at the very end of 2010. And then after that, instead of getting DLC, they released a new game, which was literally the same name of this game, Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers 2012. And they kept that going for a while. We had 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. And then they just dropped all that and called it Magic Duels. And I thought they were going to stick with that for a while, but then they killed Duels. And they launched Arena, which is a game we had to this day. And it's probably been the longest lasting of the PC Magic the Gathering card games that just continually evolve. That being said, Arena has killed all the old Duels games in a way that I'm really, really disappointed by. So Wizards last year ended up pulling the ability to purchase all of these old games. All of them. The original Magic Duels, 2012, 13, 14, 15. They're pretty well all gone if you don't own them, and I hate that. Just coming from a perspective of game preservation, there's no way for someone to go in and play these games. And Interesting comment. I actually made a comment about this over at Wizards saying, hey, I'm pretty disappointed by this due to just preservation and the fact that these old games were an awesome window back into when these sets were new. And sadly, the reply I got was more or less, they're old, they're antiquated, go play Arena. And I was honestly very, very disappointed by that kind of mindset. The fact that, these old games are pretty well gone if you didn't buy them. And even if you did buy them, like I did, I went back and played a little bit of 2015, and the ability to get new packs for new cards and everything is gone. So you're literally stuck with what you get whenever you start. Thankfully, the original Duels of the Planeswalkers doesn't really have that problem. Just because you can't get packs in the first place, you only unlock like 1 or 2 cards whenever you beat someone, but all the content that you bought is still there. That being said, I'm really disappointed by this new tendency of releasing games that are digital only and then killing them later with no way of getting them. It's kind of making for a bleak future for retro gaming. Because again, if you didn't buy it whenever it was available, you can't buy it anymore. Now, it did go away like a year or two ago, so you had like a 10, 12-year window to buy them if you wanted them. But let's say, 10, 20 years from now, I'd be interested in seeing the history of Magic games. Well, now there's this huge blank spot where you can't get access to them, and it's such a shame, because these games were a lot of fun. And they're not like Magic Arena as well. Like, Arena is literally almost entirely PvP if you want to make progress, whereas these games, they had these awesome single-player modes where you could just kick back and play at your leisure and not have to worry about playing a real online opponent. But that'll close out this episode of Afterglow. These Duels of the Planeswalkers games, especially the first one, they were all really fun. I'm so disappointed that they're not available anymore, at least legally. Now, that being said, of course, the sound clip that's coming up if you want to play these today.
Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You're villain indeed. Being a pirate is a right indeed. Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. You are a pirate.
Normally, I would say, go out, find a copy, buy the game. However, it is literally impossible at this point, but if you listened to the hint song prior, there may be other places where you can acquire and play these games. And sadly, it's piracy that keeps a lot of these older digital-only games alive, because the developers pull them and you have no way of playing them outside of piracy. So at least someone's trying to keep the games alive, right? Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for listening. We're going to have a music outro before we have the show outro, which is kind of like a newer thing that I've thrown in the past couple episodes, and I hope you guys have kind of enjoyed that as well. More show changes probably coming soon. Of course, we've got the new logo, maybe some other new artwork coming from TobyVonDoom. Might be getting some more music, too. Again, I really like Evan King and his open source licensed music, which is what I've been using for a while now, but I have been looking for something kind of exclusive to the show, and hopefully I got someone kind of doing some work on that. We'll see what happens there. But that's enough of me rambling. Here's some more music from Duels of the Planeswalkers. All right. One thing I've always liked about the music from this game is they've always had like a really fun bass line, and I don't remember that bass line from any other version of Duels of the Planeswalkers, but the original had that bass line that's always just stuck with me. I wonder if that's just me, or can you guys hear it too? I don't know. But thank you for listening to this episode of Afterglow. We do have a Discord if you want to join in and talk. Not a lot of people in there right now, honestly, but hey, if you want to join in, I drop in there every once in a while, so leave a message and I will definitely get back with you. There is also a Patreon if you would like to support the show on top of get a shout out at the end of every episode. You can check the show notes for the Patreon as well as that Discord link. And if you like this show, check out our friends of the show as well. We've got Retro Gaming Roundup, one of the longest running podcasts, along with one of the longest podcasts, every episode being about 5 hours long, just chock full of top 10s and retro gaming news and interviews, all kinds of good stuff. Along with Retro Gaming Roundup, check out the Secret Levels podcast. They're another retro video game podcast where they cover one game per episode, all kinds of fun facts. They're pretty heavy on the comedic side of things, and I love listening to them. They're always incredibly entertaining. Speaking of Secret Levels, the new show logo is from TobyVonDoom from Secret Levels. I love what he did with that NES-style logo. Definitely running with that. Our intro music is from Evan King. The song during the intro is called 20XX. He's got a YouTube channel up where he's got a full album of chiptunes, so definitely check that out if you like the intro. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I will see you on the next episode of Afterglow.